Is this a story time? Yes, it is. Sorry it took so long. This story is about toxic friends. It happened my sophomore year of college. I've basically been friends with the same group of people since freshman year, give or take some people who have transferred or stopped being our friends, etc. But it's basically been the same core group of 8 people. Then sophomore year comes around and this new girl transfers to our school and gets integrated into our friend group. My friends and I, we kind of just make fun of each other all the time. It's not that serious. We don't actually hate each other, but we act like we hate each other. And this girl was similar. She had a similar sense of humor, so we were all for it. Yeah, cool, come hang out with us. And everything was fine for a while until halfway through the year. Things started changing. The girl that had transferred to our school kind of attached herself to this other girl that was in our friend group since freshman year, and they legitimately became inseparable. And the girl she attached herself on was actually my roommate. I post all the parts of my stories in a row, so part 2 coming right now. Toxic Friend Story Time Part 2. So the girl transferred and had attached herself to my roommate. I lived in a quad, so the 2 other girls lived with us as well. And I won't lie, I was probably the least close to my roommate. Here's where it gets juicy. This is Luke, he's one of my best friends. He is where the drama starts. Now don't get me wrong, I love him very much. But back then, he was kind of going through a phase of just being a dingbat. He and my roommate were besties since freshman year, and he was not being the greatest friend at that time. He was going through stuff, so it was kind of understandable, but you get the point. So my roommate, who literally is the least confrontational person I've ever met in my life, can't even make eye contact with you if she disagrees with you. Super passive. Honestly, it was really annoying. Instead of talking to Luke directly about hey, you're not being a really good friend, you're hurting my feelings, she just complained to the girl who had transferred to our school. Because they're besties now. I'll post part 3 right now. Storytime about toxic friends part 3. So instead of talking to him directly to resolve the issue, she just complained about him to this new girl. In my personal opinion, I think they were probably bashing him behind closed doors for a while. I can kind of understand why my roommate was all ticked off, but this girl who just transferred had absolutely no business being as offended as she was. It was between Luke and my roommate, and it should not have involved anyone else. So time goes on, tension is building, they start hanging out with us less and less, until it's finals week of the first semester of sophomore year. Apparently, my roommate had set up a mediation with Luke through his roommate to talk to him. The rest of us in the friend group were oh my god, finally, you're gonna talk and resolve it. And they had a talk, and according to Luke, apparently everything was kind of resolved. They weren't gonna be best friends again, but they were cool now. And we had a huge lab final the next day because we were in the same class, and so I was just glad that it got over with before finals so that he could concentrate. But that is not what happened. Oh, at all. Posting part 4 right now. Storytime about toxic friends part 4. So we had a really important final the next day. Everything seemed like it was resolved. And then I get a text at 1 a.m. from Luke. Of course I'm awake because who needs sleep? And he texted me, he's dude, this girl and your roommate are coming over to my room. They're in my apartment. Now our apartments, fortunately, were literally across the hall from each other, not even 10 feet away. So I was do you need me to come over there? I will come over there. And he's no, I just want to, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. And I was I'll come over there, I'll do it. And he's no, it's fine. So they come into his room while he's studying for our final. My roommate had already talked to him about her business, and it seemed like it was fine. And the girl who had transferred in just laid into him out of nowhere, saying all kinds of crap she had no right to be saying. In the middle of the night, right before an important final, which they knew that he had because we talked about it. We talked about it a lot that we had this final. Posting part 5 right now. Story about toxic friends part 5. So the night before a final, 1 a.m., they burst into his room out of nowhere, completely uninvited. Apparently his roommate let them into their apartment. And this girl who transferred was saying all kinds of crap. To put it bluntly, she told him all the things that were horrible about him, and that things that she didn't like about him, and things that he needed to work on. And told him that he needed to go to therapy more than once. Basically forcing her opinion on him and telling him a whole list of things that were bad about him. Which is totally something you do with somebody who has seasonal depression. In the middle of that seasonal depression. Which is why he was not being the greatest friend. But I digress. So an hour passes and he texts me all of what happened. And I'm fuming. Unbridled rage. At the fact that this chick thinks that she had the right to do that. When she has only known us a couple of months. Posting part 6 right now. Storytime about toxic friends part 6. So the next day comes, I wake up to go to our calculus class at 8 a.m. that I have with Luke. He doesn't show. because he didn't get any sleep for, I don't know, maybe 2 people coming into his room in the middle of the night and telling him all these horrible things about himself that he already has problems with. So this girl that we had become friends with in class was like, hey, where's Luke? And this girl who we were friends with was roommates with the girl who had transferred. But she was super chill and we love her. So she's like, where's Luke? And I didn't know if she knew, and Luke asked me not to say anything because I knew everything that happened. So I was like, oh, he didn't get a lot of sleep, some crazy things happened last night. And she's like, oh yeah, I heard about that. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, a little bit. And I was like, I just don't know why they were there so late at night. And we were having this talk as we were walking to the cafeteria. We say bye, she goes to her room, I go to the cafeteria. Get myself some breakfast. Guess who's there? My roommate, this girl that transferred, and Luke's roommate. I had to act like I didn't know anything, so I sat with them. Posting part 7 right now. Storytime about toxic friends, part 7. This one's a long one. So I sat down at the table to have breakfast. I acted like everything was normal. I didn't say a dang thing. And then the girl that transferred apparently saw me talking to her roommate as we were walking to the cafeteria. And she goes, so I guess Luke told you everything, huh? And I was like, huh? Trying to feign ignorance. I don't really remember what she said because I kind of was just seeing red at this point. But she said something like, why are you talking to my roommate about stuff? It's none of your business. It's no one else's business. And I was just like, huh? She assumed that I was talking shit about her to her roommate. And I said, for your information, all you talked about is that Luke wasn't in class this morning for reasons. And she just kept saying, I just don't understand why anybody else is, it's not their business, it's not their business. And I was like, bitch! So I was like, I don't know what you're trying to say, but he's our friend, and if you're gonna be mean to him, it's our business. And she gets up and leaves because she doesn't want to deal with it. Cause she knows I'm gonna lay into her. They're afraid of me, with my mama bear. Posting part 8 right now. Story time about toxic friends, last part. So she leaves because she knows I'm gonna get at her, leaving me with my roommate and Luke's roommate. Might I add, my roommate and Luke were best friends for a really long time, and she was in the room while this girl was saying all these horrible things about Luke, and she didn't say a dang thing. She just stood there. So at this point, I'm so mad I'm crying, because I could just imagine how Luke felt while this was happening. And Luke's roommate, who kind of knew what was going on, was like, we were just trying to have an intervention about his behavior because it was getting out of hand. And I was like, no, that is not an intervention. An intervention is something that happens out of love and concern. What y'all did was a straight up personal attack. Bullying. I just don't understand how you guys thought that was cool. I don't understand your mentality to think that that was cool in any way. And he was like, yeah, it wasn't the way it was supposed to be. My roommate wouldn't even look at me. She just stared at the table. No eye contact. So I got fed up and left. I still had to live with that girl for the rest of the year. We're not friends with them anymore. And to this day, she doesn't look at me.
My neighbors saw me naked. Story time. So sometimes a bitch sleeps naked because I get hot as fuck and because I heard a lot of good things about it. But anyways, this particular night, a bitch was naked and I woke up out of my slumber thirsty as fuck. I was literally feeling like SpongeBob when he went to Sandy's. But a bitch didn't put on clothes like a normal person because it was 3 o'clock in the morning and no one was up. So I thought it would be a good idea to get out of bed and get water naked. So I'm getting my water and minding my own business. And my boyfriend's mom decides to come out of the room. And she knew I was in the kitchen, but she didn't know I was naked. And she starts walking towards me. And I was like, oh, hell no. I wasn't about to have my boyfriend's mom see me naked. You got me fucked up. So I thought it would be a good idea to run outside the back door, which leads to our backyard. But because I did that, my boyfriend's mom obviously thought it was suspicious. So she opens the back door and calls my name. So I run through the side of the house to get to the front of the garage door. My thought process at the time, I was gonna put in the garage code to get into the house through the garage. But that didn't happen. Part 2 gonna be funny. My neighbors saw me naked. Story time. So I ran through the side of the house to get to the garage door that's in the front of the house. Keep in mind, I am bare booty cheeks naked, running outside just so my boyfriend's mom didn't see me naked. So I get to the garage door and I put in the code. The code wasn't working. And I'm just standing there freaking out no. I was standing right here, butt naked, trying to put in this code. And the fence is pretty low, so if my neighbors came out, they would definitely see me naked. Which is exactly what happened. It was 3 a.m. and my neighbors came out. I guess I was being super loud. So my neighbors came out and they're like, hey, who's over there? And I literally stood there frozen as fuck. Shook. I looked like a deer in headlight. After I was done freaking out, I thought it would be a good idea to book it. So I started running towards the front door. That was the dumbest decision ever because if I didn't do that, my neighbors probably wouldn't have seen me naked. Once I decided to make a run for it, the outside light came on because the light is triggered by a motion sensor. Then the light flashed on me and my neighbor just stared at each other like. Then I ran for the front door, which happened to be unlocked.
Crazy ass story time. 23 years ago, there was this mother of 2 children who just recently had a 3rd child. Soon after, the newborn baby was sleeping in the nursery while they were throwing a house party, and unfortunately, during the party, the house caught on fire. Everyone scrambles out of the house and they couldn't get to the baby, and then the cops concluded that the baby had died in the fire. But her other 2 kids made it out alive. And even though the cops told her that her baby had died, she refused to believe it. Many years later, the mother took her 2 children to a birthday party, and there was this other woman there with her child. And now the mother looks at that child and is in shock because she looks so much like her other 2 kids. She goes up to the little girl and says that she has bubble gum in her hair so that she can steal a few strands of her hair. She took it to a lab and they DNA tested it, and that little girl was her child. So it turns out many years ago during that house party, a woman that the mother knew went upstairs, took the baby, and started the fire so that the baby would be declared as dead and she could easily get away with kidnapping her. And then she ran from the cops and they can't find her.